You don't have to respect the player. You should respect the game. That's my reaction to Russell Wilson and the power of smart renegotiation of under a contract that he really had very little leverage to change. Think about that for a second. Russell Wilson was under contract for this season. And based upon the collective bargaining agreement, he could have been under contract as a franchise tag, even if he didn't like a new deal at the end of this season, into next year, and the following year as well. That's 3 years, and you can even put a transition tag. So instead, he has a new deal where the average annual value is $35 million. The signing bonus is $65 million. Russell Wilson is now the highest paid player in the National Football League, and you don't have to respect the player. You should respect the game. And by that, I don't actually mean his playing ability. All right, we've seen this before. Top quarterback, maybe not the best quarterback, but top quarterback's contract is up, then he gets a new deal. Here's the thing, his contract wasn't actually up. Kind of genius and diabolical. And just like he plays the game in terms of how he carries himself, things he purports himself to be, it might not be the reality of who he actually is. Right? Like, do we really, really think that he was celibate with Ciara before he got married? I mean, she did have a kid from somebody else. Like, I believe in born-again Christians. I don't believe in born-again virgins. I'm sorry. I was born at night, not last night. She is a beautiful and charming and intelligent woman, and she is completely into him. And I am not jealous at all. I'm just not an idiot to think, oh yeah, I'm going to buy that. But that's the image that he tried to sell us, and some people bought it. The reason that some around the NFL, his former defensive mates, some other offensive players in the league, don't like Russell Wilson is because he's not real. But you know what he is? Really rich. And that same use of media, that same smart planning and positioning created some false narrative that if the Seahawks didn't agree to a deal by last night, he wouldn't renegotiate further. It's a game of chicken, and the Seahawks blinked. And look, there is some benefits to the Seahawks. Pay all the money up front. They get cost certainty. They got their quarterback for the next 3 to possibly 4 years. And he's a damn good quarterback. On the other hand, they didn't have to do the deal. This is much like the train that doesn't have to stop. Doesn't have to stop. Train runs you over. I cut the ads, okay? Train runs you over. That's a you problem. Even if they hit the brakes, like you shouldn't have been on the tracks. But now you got to clean it up. Now you got to pay some sort of lawsuit. Now there's bad PR. It's just not worth it. Hit the brakes. Try and stop. I mean, look, I don't believe Russell Wilson is 100% of what he purports to be. Right? He posts online a video with he and Ciara snuggling in bed, celebrating the new contract, how happy he is to be there. Meanwhile, he's got like 3-4 necklaces on. Like, nobody wears 3 or 4 necklaces to bed. Some people I've talked to, they take off their wedding ring for bed. That's the only thing I leave on. I can sleep completely nude except for my wedding ring. And a hat. It's an ode to Smokey and the Bandit, who only takes off his hat for one thing. Anyway, the point is this. He just played the game. Right? These contract demands were made in January. You go back 3-4 weeks ago, and suddenly it leaked out to Colin Cowherd that maybe Russell Wilson prefers to play in New York. Maybe he's tired of the rain, tired of the cold, started carrying the team with a bad offensive line. And then last week it leaked out that if the deal wasn't done on time, it wouldn't ever get done. And as much as I want to say both chips and say I don't believe it, Because you mean to tell me 3 months from now, if John Snyder came in and said, hey, we're going to give you $65 million up front, he would go like, no, John, I can't. I drew a line in the sand. The fact is, played the game smartly. And he won. And whether or not you believe he sleeps with 3 necklaces on, whether or not you believe that he and Ciara were, in fact, celibate until marriage, whatever you believe about Russell Wilson, believe this. He's a damn good player, damn smart businessman who positioned himself smartly to become the highest paid player in the National Football League and somehow make it out where he's loyal to the Seahawks. And remember, here's the big part. He never said a negative word. That's the genius to it. These NBA guys, Kevin Durant, can't say the right thing. They can't figure out how to answer the question. Kyrie Irving saying the wrong thing time and again when they're going to be free agents. Here's a guy who's under contract and could be under contract for at least 2, if not 3 more years to come under some sort of franchise or transition tag. And he never said a word publicly about negotiating, about contract, about happiness or unhappiness or dollar figure. Nothing. He basically pulled an Eli Manning. Right? Eli never said anything bad about his general manager or about his coach going back to last year. But let's remember that the coach, the owner, the general manager were all in line, and they didn't even want to bench Eli Manning. They simply wanted to play his backups during the second half of games late in the year to see what they had outside of Eli Manning to start the transition of finding another quarterback. And Eli said, nah, if you're going to sit me at the end of a game, sit me the whole game. It lasted 1 game. Eli was back. The coach was out. The general manager was out. But Eli never said a negative word. I mean, like, former players, fans, they lost their minds. Had Eli's back so much so that Dave Gettleman now, even he walks on eggshells. Don't really know exactly how to handle the Eli thing. But you know what I know not to do? Don't bench him in public. There's never been an article or a soundbite about him even not wanting to play for the Chargers when he was drafted. It was rumored, it was talked about, it was reality, but you never heard Eli Manning say any sort of word. Change that to Russell Wilson. You don't have to like the player. You can love the player, but you got to appreciate the game. Right? That was a robbery in plain sight. That was a renegotiation that wasn't necessary. And oh yeah, by the way, it runs counter to how the Seahawks had been built and how so many other championship teams have been sustained in the NFL, which is keep your costs lower for your best players so that you can fill out a roster around you. What a brilliant business maneuver by Russell Wilson. This wasn't his second contract. He wasn't Dak Prescott playing on a dated deal. He's playing on a second deal. And he's been outstanding. I'm not taking shots at all at him. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the league. I think we'll look back at him as a better quarterback than the reality of Russell Wilson was. Because the defense, the running game, and his big play making ability at the end of games is what won them games the first 2.5, 3 years in the league. That said, he's the highest paid guy in the National Football League, got a ton of money up front, doesn't have to move, doesn't hurt his image, and somehow has won the day.